talk, which will also be relatively short. The total of those first two subsections is going to be 20 to 30 minutes, and then the remainder of the time is going to be an unfortunately misnamed roundtable discussion, despite being in an amphitheater-style room, where we're going to be discussing how to make water quality monitoring via community groups easier, better, faster, stronger work for all of us more in New York State. So that's going to be the remainder of the time. I'll be your secretary taking down notes on the discussion during that period of time. A couple of other things I want to get through before our first talk. There are three things that I asked our presenters to present on in their presentations and that I want us to talk about during the discussion section. One, we need to coordinate in order to share resources and data and open them up across the state. Now, it would be nice to do this beyond the state of New York, but this is a New York thing, so. Two, there are no competitors, only potential collaborators. And we need to start rethinking the funding schema in this state and elsewhere in order to support that. And three, continuous monitoring and grab sampling are only key parts of an effective monitoring program, but public education, outreach, and interaction are equally as important. I also wanted to give a brief acknowledgement of whose land we're on. SUNY ESF Syracuse campus is located in the ancestral lands of the Onondaga Nation, the center of the Six Nations of the, I'm going to mispronounce this too, Haudenosaunee. Sorry. Haudenosaunee. Yeah, I keep forgetting the SAU is an SHO, Confederacy. We would like to acknowledge and honor this Confederacy for its many contributions, including the original philosophy and practice of environmental stewardship in the area, and especially their previous stewardship of the waters of the region. Note how when the Onondaga no longer managed the waters began to perish. We still have a lot to learn from them. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Nancy Miller, the coordinator with the CSLAP program of the New York State Federation of Lake Associations. And you can turn your presentation up. Just there. There you go.
Thank you.
Here's the clicker if you want.
We found it earlier easier using other key. That's okay. Thank you, everyone. For those of you who don't know what CSLAP is in the program, it is the Citizen Statewide Leak Assessment Program. This is our 39th year of the New York State Federation of Lake Associations working with DEC to run this program. So who's the New York State Federation of Lake Associations? We are a not-for-profit that was founded in 1983. We have over 250 lake associations across the state as our members. We also have individual and corporate members, and you can see we really do cover the entire state. Basic mission statement: to protect the water resources of New York, mostly as an educational organization, although we certainly work, as Peter said, and emphasize the collaborative efforts. We collaborate with a lot of other entities around the state. Basic educational mission: obviously we have a website. You can go to that and learn more about us. We do a print newsletter still in this day and age because we find that people actually read it if it comes in the mail as opposed to an email one. But we do also email news that's a little bit more timely throughout the year. Notably, we published a book a few years ago called Diet for a Small Lake, which is available on the web as a free PDF, although if you get sick of staring at your screen, a hard copy is only $10, so you can get a copy of that. And we also do a series of regional and annual conferences around the state. We just finished up our annual conference at Lake George. This year was, again, record attendance. It just keeps growing. And we actually had to shut down registration 3 weeks early because we had such an influx of registrations. We also have what I call Ask Dr. Lake, which is basically people from around the state call our office and ask us a gazillion questions about lakes. And that is anything from water quality to short-term rental questions, bylaws, dam safety. If you can think of a question about a lake, we've probably received it. But it is very much a collaborative effort. We work with a lot of different groups around the state. This is kind of just a brief slide showing some of the major players that we've been working with. We also are the affiliate, an affiliate of for the North American Lake Management Society, so we also have them as sort of a partner to TAP as well. But I'm really here to talk about quickly the Citizens Statewide Lake Assessment Program. It was formed to basically be modeled after other volunteer monitoring programs that were being created in the early 1980s in places like Wisconsin and Minnesota, Maine, Vermont, so we weren't first in line. And NYSCOLA was really created to advocate for a New York program. We are embedded in the environmental conservation law, so this is actually a mandated DEC program, Article 17, Section 305. And very specifically, it was to establish a network of volunteers, and here's the kicker for us, belonging to lake associations across the state to monitor lakes and their conditions. There's no definition of lake association, so we've, made that inclusive rather than exclusive. The law also set forth that DEC has to have a coordinator that is not a full-time coordinator position, and set forth the requirements for training, sampling parameters, and importantly requires an annual report. From DEC's end, the primary goal of the program is to support their water body assessments required under the Clean Water Act. It's also to identify trends in water quality data. But from our perspective, it also supports local management efforts and is vital to public education at the local level. We started in 1986, first year of the program. Scott Kishpaw, some of you may know, was hired as a young kid, started as a pilot program on 25 lakes in the state. This year we are going to have 196 sites on 183 lakes, and we are looking at over 600 volunteers this year, and we have a mandate in our new contract to get to 250 lakes by 2028. So we do very much work together, and we have to. We have 600 volunteers to manage. I am now full-time CSLAP, but my partner at TBC, Elena Onion, she has other duties and responsibilities. So we tap our friends and colleagues at Upstate Freshwater Institute. They are the laboratory for this program. And certainly our volunteers help us out tremendously. NYSCOLA has sort of a set of responsibilities. It's really the running the day-to-day logistics of the program. It's keeping track of the field data. It's keeping track of the supplies, the equipment, the volunteers. DEC is required to generate the reports, provide the money, a program coordinator, importantly, a quality assurance program plan and standard operating procedures, which I'll talk about. They look at what analytes are we going to do this year. Are we going to cut parameters? Are we going to add parameters? And they assist with training, because obviously we have a lot of new people to train over the last couple of years. And then they do quality assurance, because one of the things we really want to make sure is that the data is meeting the highest standard possible. Volunteer responsibilities, basically they go out and they do it, and they're required to follow a standard protocol, and most importantly, they communicate the results back to the local lake associations and try to interpret that with some help if they need it. And they also tell us what we're doing right. Can they read the reports? Are they clear? Is the data what they need? They provide a huge impact on the program in terms of their feedback. But really, for this program, I want to make sure that we all recognize the importance of volunteer monitoring, especially in a home rule state. The volunteers are the eyes on the ground. They are the ones that get the message out to their local governments and to their local neighbors and friends. And they really do support and enhance what we can do as bigger groups, and certainly what the government side of things can do. So again, they follow a standard operating procedure, CSLAP, QAP, and ELAP, I call this slide. They're trained in a standardized way. There's an approved quality assurance program plan for the program. We have a standard sampling protocol, and we use an ELAP certified laboratory. And the reason for that is DEC is not allowed to use any data. What we argue with it or not, they are not allowed to use any data that is not from an ELAP certified program. And so we do annual trainings around the state every year. This year we're in the process of training about 100 new volunteers that are coming into the program this year. And then sometimes if we think, and it's obvious, maybe somebody needs a refresher course, or if they were trained 2 years ago, they haven't sampled for a while, we bring them back in and do a retraining for them. Standard limnological analytes for the most part, you can see the list. And we also do a few other things. We have a perception form, weather, air temperature, and we want to know what they're doing on their lake. Are they harvesting? Are they applying copper sulfate? What are the lake management activities taking place on that lake? Perception data is really related to the assessment. Is the water body impaired for recreation and use? And so that ties back into the PWO list. We have some optional data that they can do if they want to. Ice on, ice off, vegetation surveys. We're getting more into depth profiles, angler surveys, boat counts, zebra mussels, and reporting. All of the lakes receive an annual report, and so that's really important to the lake associations. The format has changed a lot over the years. They used to be like hand-typed epistles, and now they are in an electronic format. The reports are all publicly available, so you can go to the CSLAP dashboard, and you can actually go to all of the electronic reports. The older CSLAP reports, the old PDF versions, are on the nice little website. We also have done some HABs monitoring and reporting. Invasive species ID people can send us plants. We prefer pictures of plants. We prefer pictures of snails, but sometimes we get snails sent to us anyway. We've had a lot of interesting things put in CSLAP coolers over the years. Can you tell us what this is? Well, it's black and rotting. No. And really, that data that is used at the local level is really important. With some help from Greg Boyer in the room and also Upstate Freshwater Institute, in 2013, we started a pilot project for HABs monitoring through CSLAP. It worked pretty well, and so from 2015 to 2022, it was actually embedded into CSLAP. TEC felt that we had certainly learned a lot about HABs in the state, so now people report visual ID, and we're trying to work on some other ways. Greg's been very generous about telling people to send a sample. Upstate Freshwater Institute is taking samples, so we are sort of continuing that. We do ask that everybody report HABs to the NIHABs website, because a lot of what seems to be happening is they see the HAB and they're not reporting the HAB. We don't want people to think there are no more blooms in the state, so keep reporting those HABs. And who uses the data? Well, it's an enormous sector of people. It's obviously at the local level, and we've got a lot of watershed management plans written because of it. But one of the things that we've been really trying to emphasize over the last several years is that the data shouldn't be the endpoint. That's kind of a little bit of a DEC thing, right? They've got the priority water body list, and the DEC, and the data becomes the endpoint. Okay, it's listed. Well, now you want to go into the management part to get that on. So what are you trying to affect by collecting the data? We would say education, advocacy, engagement, and management are important as well. Who uses the data? What do lake associations do with the data? I get this all the time. And since we've got 5 minutes, I don't have 100 success stories, but big lake associations use it. Alston Lake uses it to effectively get sewers put in after a long battle. Little lake associations. This is Echo Lake in Shenango County. They were facing some turbidity issues, and it was starting to show up in their data, and they just went out and fixed the problem. We've also been tapped by crater groups. The Lake Observations Through Satellites group out of the University of North Carolina borrowed a whole bunch of our volunteers a few years ago to look at lake volumes as part of a big study they were doing. Academic researchers have used the data. Again, it's a publicly available database. Some of these lakes now have 30 plus years worth of data, so there's a lot of long-term data, and it's a big data set. So we're seeing it pop up in a lot of research papers. But we're looking ahead. We're not looking backwards. I'm really excited about our new mandate. We're looking at, obviously, the potential environmental justice areas and disadvantaged communities. Most lakes in New York State, let's face it, is rich white people. So we're trying to broaden who we include as CSLAP and remove the barriers to the access to the program. And we've received a grant to do more vertical profiling for dissolved oxygen and temperature. So on that, trying to go through that in 5 minutes feels a bit like going to be an auctioneer, but just thank yous to our volunteers and then our board of directors and affiliates and obviously our hosts. And because I have to put that, it's in my contract, that's where the money comes from.
Thank you, Nancy. So next up, we have Tom McCrimmons from WRI and DEC's Hudson River Estuary Program. Sorry, one moment, please. When you get everybody thinking, let's put the session name.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, close to the afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom McCravich. I'm the Water Resource Specialist with the New York State DEC Hudson River Estuary Program in partnership with New York State Water Resource Institute at Cornell University. And I'm going to be talking about my program that's relatively new, Monitoring Unassessed Stream Segments Program. Just a little outline. I'm going to give a background on the estuary program if no one's familiar with our program. And then we are really well known for our acronyms in the DEC, so I wanted to keep that alive. So when I say MUST program, it is the Monitoring Unassessed Stream Segments Program. We'll be talking about that. And then what we've done in the past, the present, and then what we're looking forward to in the future. So for those of you who don't know, the Hudson River Estuary Program, it's a non-regulatory program with the New York State DEC. And this map here to the right, this is our program boundary. And if you don't know, the Hudson River is actually an estuary up until the federal dam up in Troy. So we have tidal influence. We have high tide and low tide. So that supports a variety of very important ecosystems. And so our program covers the whole watershed. So all the streams and rivers flowing into the Hudson River and the Hudson River itself. So our program pretty much, the northern point spans from the federal dam up in Troy, like I said, all the way down to New York City Harbor. And our main mission is to help people conserve, restore, and enjoy the Hudson River and its estuary. So our program has various sub-programs within it that focus on fish, wildlife, and habitats, clean water, healthy streams, which is kind of like what I fall under, conserve natural areas, climate adaptation, education, and access to the river. And our program is guided by our Hudson River Estuary Action Agenda, which we have a series of goals that we set out over a 5-year period to hit on. And I would like to say, too, that our program is really well known for offering grants that hit on all of these topics that you see here, as well as our measures of successes within the estuary. All right, so my program, Unassessed Stream Segments Program. This is a water quality monitoring program that targets unassessed and unconfirmed stream segments. So what is a stream segment and what is unassessed, what is unconfirmed? These are all DEC Division of Water language, so I'm going to water it down. That was a bad pun. So basically, New York State DEC Division of Water segmented streams and rivers back in the day, and we segmented them based off of water body class, or best use. So there's Class A streams, which is drinking water, B, which is primary and secondary recreation, so swimming and boating, C is fishing, and D is just for fish conservation. And they've segmented on various other metrics as well, but those are the main ones that center around. So what is unassessed and unconfirmed? So basically the state has a set of guidelines on how much data you need to collect to have a confirmed assessment. It's kind of like what Nancy was talking about in her presentation just now. So unassessed and unconfirmed, it's not enough water quality data to determine the condition of the stream, to see if the stream is actually supported by its best use, to see if the water in the stream is actually hitting what it needs to hit in order to be healthy. So I wanted to focus on these because there's a lot of streams and rivers throughout New York State, and there's only a limited amount of people that can work to sample these streams to see what the condition is like. So I wanted to create a program that specifically targeted these streams and then also included community-based watershed groups, stakeholders, municipality interests. So my program is strictly driven on those key partners. So I have an application period that I send out to partners, community members, watershed groups, etc., to recommend streams and rivers within their community or their interest area or their watershed that they want to see monitored. And I monitor those streams for 2 years to get an updated, confirmed assessment of that water body. And so you might be thinking, how does that benefit me? Like as a community member, watershed group, or etc. This benefits the community members because it makes them more competitive for grant funding when you want to apply for maybe a watershed planning grant or a best management practice. If you have a confirmed assessment within your watershed, it kind of checks a box. It gives the partners an accurate water quality data to make informed decisions on local land use and policies. And again, as I said, it makes you more competitive in grants. And a lot of these watershed groups that I interact with a lot, they already have plans, and they just need more data to help those plans. And then from there, can figure out, okay, what can we do for establishing best management practice to improve and protect the resources within their watershed. So that is the whole goal of this program. So what are we looking to collect? So we take water samples. So when a stream segment or water applicant is accepted, we go out to the stream and the river and we identify sampling points based off the size of the water body because they all vary in size. We go out and take samples and we sample 5 times a year. So over 2 years, it's going to be a total of 10 collections. We look for total and dissolved nutrients and metals. I have a whole list of greater than 25 and you want to bog down the presentation on that. But I can supply that information if anyone's interested. Basically, a lot of phosphorus, nitrogen, and metals like mercury, lead, etc. And then we have a probe, which we go out and we collect pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen, specific conductance, salinity. And in addition to that, we also collect macroinvertebrates 1 time a year in each of those locations. Macroinvertebrates are a supplemental indicator for water quality. They're more of like a long-term indicator where you're taking a water sample. It's more of a snapshot of what the water is like in that moment. So having bugs to complement that is very important too. So as I said, or as I didn't say, but I collect all of this following DEC methods and protocols, and Nancy mentioned the QAP, and I do follow the QAP that New York State DEC Division of Water has. So all the data and assessment results get sent to DEC Division of Water, and then on a 2-year cycle, they send that to the EPA to inform the water body inventory prior to water bodies listing to establish a condition of that water body. So how can you be eligible to participate in this program? We're really looking for people that are affiliated with a group that have a lot of resources towards water resource management. We're also looking for the applicant to have resources to complement the research. Okay, so we have all this data. What are we going to do with it? I can be there to help guide, but I can't do all the work that is needed for next steps. Also looking for a plan on how you plan to communicate the results. I can provide the data and I can help give insight, but really looking for how are you going to really put this into the community of the awareness and all such, because I only have a limited capacity. And then the willingness and capacity to deliver on the next steps. So we have this data, can we incorporate it in a plan? Or can we, does the plan support the data to install a BMP or etc.? So that's kind of like what we're looking for, in addition to a letter of support from another maybe partner, stakeholder, or municipality, just to show that yes, there is interest in this work. And so basically the application is a Survey 123 application. It's really accessible, it's a link. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in the next slides, but I usually have application period one time a year, because this is a revolving program. So every 2 years, or every year I pick up new water bodies to monitor, and every year I'm ending monitoring in the streams and rivers. So it's a revolving cycle. So past, present, and future. So back in 2021, late 2021 is when I started the program by myself. I had a lot of help. But I'm the main one that goes out and samples, and like I said, I have a team of one. In 2022, I did pick up 4 stream segments to monitor. So last year, I just wrapped up successfully monitoring 4 stream segments, and they're all in different watersheds. And then so in 2024, this season, I'm going to be wrapping up 2 more stream segments that I monitored last year. And then in this most recent application period, I selected 4 new stream segments to monitor for this year and then next year. And this map is to show, as of right now, again, I just started basically in 2022. So all the red line is the program boundary, and then the black little lines are the stream segments that have either been monitored or will be monitored in this program. That is it. I wanted to, I don't know if I need 5 minutes or not, but I am very welcome to answer any questions, I guess, at the end, right? Of everyone? Okay. And then this is my contact information. So, thank you.
Next up, we have Frank Coviolo from the Bashkill Area Association. Frank is standing in for Jackie Broder, who is on your program as
Hi, good morning. I am Frank Coviolo, and as Pete has indicated, I'm standing in for Jackie Broder, who should have been here, but due to a situation at home, had to cancel at the last minute. I'm here representing the Bashkill Area Association, which is a not-for-profit organization located in eastern Sullivan County. And while our mission statement for environmental protection and education is mostly confined to a specific wetland, which is the Bashkill Wetland and Wildlife Management Area, we do extend beyond that, and I'll give you a little bit more information as we proceed. My situation is a little different than the 2 preceding presenters because we're an independent not-for-profit, and my work in that organization is really focused on a particular area. I would love to be part of Tom's program, but I'm outside of his boundaries. And I'm also a wetland and not a stream or a river.
or a lake.
Or a lake. Actually, I went to one of the Lake Association's meetings about 2 or 3 years ago on Lake George, and I was really impressed with that presentation and was very much interested in joining it, except I'm a wetland. So here I am by myself giving you I'll give you a little information about what we do and what our community-based water testing program is all about. The Bashkill itself wetland is about a 3,000 acre wetland. It's the 6th largest wetland in southeastern New York, and it sits on top of one of the top 20 aquifers in New York State. Okay. We're located in the valley. This is a picture actually looking North. Okay, looking north. This is formerly Indian land. 3,000 acres, as I indicated, in some forest. This was abbreviated significantly. Actually, the word I had gotten was I was limited to 2 or 3 minutes. So that's what's going to happen here. About 2 or 3 minutes. This is a commercial map that we use as a not-for-profit and individual organization handout. This is a map of what we actually refer to as the Upper Bashkill. One of my colleagues, Alex, will be giving a presentation shortly. He may or may not be talking about the lower part of the Bashkill. We are actually in the Delaware River water basin. And so our water comes in from the north, goes out through the south, and as part of our water testing program, we monitor all of the inlets. There's about 6 of them, if I remember correctly. We do some water samplings in the center of our wetland to get a sort of average look at what the waters look like, and then we actually monitor the exit from the state-owned part of the Bashkill into the lower Bashkill, so that our neighbors down south, Alex has reference of what we're providing him in his portion, and then eventually into the Delaware River. This is public land, so the Bashkill is as I said, it's a wetland, but it's also a wildlife management area. There's hiking, biking, fishing, kayaking, hunting, all and other activities that are involved here and open to the public year-round. This particular wetland is known for its biodiversity of life. So in the following slide here, you're going to see a variety, especially of avian life. Year-round, there are over 200 different species of birds that live in the Bashkill. And because we are on the eastern migratory path in the United States, during migration periods, there are thousands and thousands of birds passing through this area. And it's widely known in New York State as a birding place of interest. So the Bashkill Area Association, what are we? I told you we're a not-for-profit organization. Our mission statement states, yes, we're here to protect the environment in general. We educate the public. We do that by a variety of mechanisms, including workshops that we provide. We're a group of volunteers. We're strictly volunteers. Although we're a not-for-profit organization, we are all volunteers. And the particular project in the Bashkill organization that brings me here today is the water testing program. This program has been in existence since about 1997. And it's run not necessarily continuous. There was a lapse, I think, between 2017 and 2021 when the former coordinator left the program. I was invited to join and coordinate the program in 2021, which I accepted. So with the exception of that short period there, we have almost 3 decades of information about the quality of our water. I recently turned that over. I am no longer the coordinator of this program, but I am intimately familiar with it. And in fact, have been recalled to duty this Saturday because it's a testing day, and the coordinator has another obligation. This is a very successful program. I think it's an ideal program. I'm happy to answer some questions. I'm not going to talk about it in detail at the moment. I'll answer any questions you have during the question series. We have about 20 plus citizen volunteers. We test the waters of the Bashkill twice each month on the 1st and the 3rd Saturday of the month. And we use an electrode system, electrochemistry system. We, in addition to maintaining meticulous records, we also have a quality control program, which Nancy had talked about, which my background is not environmental, my background is actually in vitro diagnostic analytical testing. So in that particular field, quality control is very important because you're talking about people's lives. So I've implemented a very stiff quality control program in this also. I also would like to thank all of those volunteers that have been with me now for years, keeping this program running. So finally, would I just like to give you a little another little look at the Bashkill Area Association in general. In addition to the water testing program, we are an advocacy group, and we have been successful in preventing some unwanted development in the lands around Mamakating and Sullivan County area, and specifically involving the Bashkill. We've been successful in one of those programs. And then I'm finally just going to comment, and if you think Tom has a lot of acronyms, look into their wastewater treatment program. I have a dictionary of acronyms that I need to consult as I read documents because there are so many of them, I can't possibly remember what they mean. We currently have a situation in Sullivan County where specifically the Bloomingburg, New York wastewater treatment plant has been slapped with violations for 2 years. Their plant has performed horribly. They've been dumping millions of gallons of E. coli infested water into what we call the Shimono Kill, which is a stream I would love Tom to monitor, but it's out of his boundaries.
It's Hudson, 14 to the wall.
Yep.
Shawangunk killed the wall, killed the Hudson.
We'll talk about that later then. At this time, I've been monitoring it, but not as Tom would do. I've been just watching it for primarily bacterial contamination and some convectivity measurements. And I will tell you that the moderator here, Pete, has been instrumental also in assisting me in this particular program. So, the Bashkill, a strictly volunteer water testing program. In its early days, it was a wet chemistry program. It's no longer that. It's now an electronic system so that we don't have to send anything anywhere. The parameters we measure, we can then gather ourselves and keep those records. I can have a thank you. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to present the Bashkill to you and a little bit about our water testing program, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Next up, we have Alex Silla, Director of New York Environment.
All right, I'm looking at my watch to keep to an actual 5 minutes, so we have time.
We've been competing for how much over we can
Right,
go.
you know, I think I only have a few. My slides are a little more minimal, so I think I can do it. If I skip,
We're counting on you,
I'm
Alex.
just going to talk about the program. I'm going to run through the rest real quick. Personally, I came to the nonprofit probably a little differently from most of the people in the municipal things. I've been in the recycling business for a long time. I've done a few, things more to promote recycling, in the business sense. That we're nonprofit-esque. Right before COVID, I founded a nonprofit here. That my original intent was to continue doing things like that, but then, based on the situation, what people were interested in the state, and that I had a 3-year break, not being able to travel anywhere, it gave me a lot of time to dig down these programs. So we ended up focusing on land use, which is a good broad term because that can cover anything. Pretty much allows you to do whatever you want in the environmental field. And a significant portion of that, though, was water issues. So that's a background or philosophy. But when we started developing programs, one of the early programs, and we came to that through a few unincorporated groups that actually had a long history with the Bashkill. We had a lot of overlap with them there. Late founder, our board members interact. She was very involved. Jackie was not here. Frank have all been involved. Because we kind of came in working just below where the Bashkill wetland ends. You get into the stream, which goes into the Neversink, which is part of Delaware. we focus on Ulster, Orange, and Sullivan County. So that's both the Hudson River, but because there was more concerns, we had some existing interest in volunteers in that area. We started in the lower Baskerville, and we've made our way down through the Neversink, and that's the Water Insight program, which see some of our volunteers installing stations here. So as of now, we're getting into, I guess, the 4th year that has really been running. We're up to 9 stations we've been doing. I think we did 3 at first, 2, then another 3, then another 2. So we have 9 stations. These are data loggers in the water, mostly based on technology from the Stroud Research Institute, their Mayfly system. We've added little customizations. Now Pete and FieldKit have put one in the Baskerville wetlands itself, which is just above our lowest station, which is in the wetlands where it meets the stream. So they're integrating between different platforms, so FieldKit, Stroud, what we've developed on our own, and we've also done bottle testing at some sites. There's some pollution issues that were the motivation for some of these installations. It's a kind of dual track program. We have the data, which is all public, obviously, on the Stroud website, FieldKit website, our website, all out there, and we create reports, but then there's specific cases where we've used it in advocacy. We have another sewage issue, not as big as the Bloomingburg sewage issue, a little more localized, but in the lower Baskerville, actually kind of behind that stream there up a little bit, where there's also been fecal coliform contamination, which we're pursuing under the Clean Water Act. Hopefully someday that will play its way through the courts and there'll be a resolution, though that probably will take as long as this program that has been running already. But, we're doing what we can on that. We're expanding things. We've recently, all the stations have CTD, conductivity, temperature, and depth. We've added turbidity, or we're adding turbidity. We have the sensors. We're still fine-tuning them for deployment. And then the bottle testing complements that on specific things. But obviously, that doesn't have as many data points. The loggers are taking data for 5 minutes. Bottle testing is seasonal, periodic. But it all works together, and that can be combined with other data like Frank's program, Pete's program, other things that DC has available, information, you can layer that together. So that's the goal of the program, and we're just, it's all volunteer-based, basically. Doesn't, there's a few things, obviously installation that requires barriers a little higher for volunteers. They do need some technical and computer support. But once that's in, as far as maintenance, doing a calibration check, that's pretty easy to pick up. Most anyone can do that. So if they're interested and they have time and they can get in the water, we get them out there, and they help us keep it running. We've done, we're the organization that has the most of any stations. Not that it was a super high bar to cross, but we are the most in the lower Baskerville and the Neversink. There's a few up more towards the Sullivan County end, a few in Ulster, but in the Orange County. Our stations are mostly in Orange County. I think 2 are in Sullivan at the border there. But for that part, from the Baskerville going down to Port Jervis along 209, we have the most of anyone. And now that we've had a few years of data, last year we finally got, pretty much a full year of data. We finally worked out the kinks the first year or 2 things. We're offline here and there. But now, so we have 3 years of added reports, so we can actually see something now. If anyone wants a copy, I do have a few here. Come to me afterwards. Check that out. It's also on the website. You just go out there and download it. Either way. So that's the information for the website. That's our email. All the social media things are the same. All newsletters, the reports, they go up there. We have some videos of things on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, check it out. If you want to volunteer in the area, hey, you're more than welcome. If you have any data suggestions, send them on. And I will hand it back to Pete.
Thanks a lot, Alex. All right, let's keep it moving. So then we have John Pratt, board member with Catskill Mountain Paper, his presentation and
engaged works. My path to today began in elementary school. It was my daughter's elementary school, and I think early education is really important, even in the environment. We had an environmental club. We went down to West Virginia, and they met Larry Gibson. I don't know if anyone in the room has heard of Larry Gibson. Larry Gibson owned a 50-acre property in West Virginia that used to be in the middle of beautiful mountains, and then now is surrounded by a moonscape. It's a mountaintop removal. It's been reduced to dust. My daughter went down there, met Larry Gibson, and he told her that you're going to meet people that are probably smarter than you, dress better than you, speak better than you do, but if you're right, don't let them tell you that they're wrong. You're wrong. So the first person she directed that to was me. That's why there's a picture of her kicking right there. She came back and she said, Dad, I've been down and seen what the fossil fuel industry does, and they want to frack in New York, and what are you going to do to stop it? And I had 4 kids. I had full-time work, self-employed and all of that. But I had a cell phone, and I thought, well, maybe I'll tweet. So I did a bunch of research. I wanted my tweets to matter, and I basically countered the rhetoric of the fossil fuel industry online to great effect. And that ended up leading me to meet Ramsey Adams, who's the executive director of Mount Keeper. I've been doing various things with Ramsey Adams for the past 13 years, and I sit on the board of Mount Keeper. It's one of the most gratifying aspects of my life. I love it. I love it. And they banned fracking in New York. So part of my point is that citizen science activism actually works. That's what I really want you to know. And it doesn't matter if you feel like you're qualified or don't feel like you're qualified. You drink water, you need water. Everybody drinks water. Everybody needs water. And if you really focus on it, it's very gratifying. I highlighted some things in red because education, I think, plays a really important role in this. So I actually went back to her elementary school to attend a little forum that he put on, where he was showing us that 2 pencil leads and a raspberry, if you come to the river,
Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi, and the 2, it was 15 cents, and you're getting this data out of the water. And I knew that data was effective. It really helped me in my debating Ken Cohen from Exxon. He talked to an anonymous Twitter handle me. I did it because he denied there was any oil in the lake they polluted, and I pointed to a guy who was tweeting himself standing in oil in that lake. So I really understood the importance of water testing, and I went back and Pete was doing that. Now years later, he moved to the area, and he had this field school that I attended. And a lot of the people you'll see here are here. And so Pete gathered us together to learn about what field kit does. So then Pete told me about what Frank is doing, and I really like highlighting what Frank is doing because his presentation, I don't think, really conveyed how important Frank's work is. He wanted me to come out and see one of Frank's explorations, and this is his son, Anthony. We're standing above the sewage treatment plant in Bloomingburg, where we knew that 120,000 gallons of wastewater were being dumped into the river every day. And at this point, it had been going on for 15 months or so.
2 years.
There were violations issued, but the mayor didn't really acknowledge that it was going on. Let's see if I can change this. Oops. Until Frank, out of their own pocket, tested the water and put out an alert from the BKAA, the Bachelor Association. And there's the data, there's the alert. And so this is basically what they did. They were just continuing, but this is what they did. the news article came out after Frank did that. Up here are the flushable wipes. I'm sure people have opinions about flushable wipes in the room. Those are causing that, and if you just go back to the image I showed you earlier, the sun standing in the water, this is just downstream of where we were. These are the headlines. This was meant to be here. The official says Mayor Russell Wood claimed during the meeting that the village was unaware of the severity of the problems which are allegedly causing 100, So this gets to my Venn diagram. My Venn diagram was going to be a little bit more elaborate. What I was going to try to do, and I sat with Pete for several hours trying to figure out who's responsible for water. So we were going to do this Venn diagram. There's DEC, there's WRI, there's this, there's my org, there's that org, and I was going to show that in the middle of that, there's a big hole because people are paying out of pocket to say what's going on. But it was so confusing to me, I couldn't create that Venn diagram. So what I wrote here was just a quote from Archimedes. Give me but one firm spot on which to stand, and oddly enough for me, that's water.
Is it winter?
And I will move the earth. Oh, that's a mistake. Sorry, not that way. And I will move the earth. For me, that's education, and it's citizen science and activism on the right. And there's the Venn diagram, and I'll keep it there. Thank you very much.
So before we go to any questions or discussion, I just want to first of all thank our presenters once again for coming up and telling us about the programs that they've been involved with. I wanted to remind you of the three things that I mentioned earlier that I said that I told these people that you just listened to that we need to talk about. Personally, I didn't really give much of an introduction for myself. I work for a not-for-profit called Field Kit, and despite being a not-for-profit, we make and sell environmental sensing systems. We also work on how to place them so that they make the most difference. Field School that John was talking about was the first time we gathered about representatives from 7 or 8 different groups, and those different groups now have maintained communication and, well, already had in some cases communication with each other, but have maintained communication and have worked further and further side by side on various different issues. The Bloomingburg sewage treatment plant problem being one of them. And so what you've just seen are a number of different models of community-engaged water quality monitoring that have worked. What we want to try and do is get all the minds in the room working on the idea that this can be a statewide thing. It doesn't just need to be those of us who happen to be around the Vashon Hill or those of us who happen to be in the Hudson River Estuary system. It could be everybody throughout New York State. If you're not-for-profit or your university or college or agency happens to have a particular area, you should be talking with the rest of us as well. So with that, I want to invite you all to keep in touch. We have QR codes for both a Slack that we've put online for us to collaborate on and keep everybody in the loop on what might evolve for trying to create some sort of coalition of not-for-profits, academic institutions, and government agencies within the state of New York. And then we have a recommendations document, which we're about to start putting anything into that we can think of. And what I wanted to ask first is any questions for our presenters, and then second, after that, any comments on what we could possibly do to expand the kind of collaboration that you've seen presented here. So first, any questions for our presenters?
Well, this is probably more for the DEC, but one of the emerging problems that seems to be coming up with watersheds and streams is the overgrowth of algae coming up there. And is that being incorporated into any of the monitoring schemes, or are we still pretty much
my monitoring covers phosphorus and nitrogen, which is like a main source for the HABs. So you could possibly make connections with that, but as of right now, the only thing that I know is what Nancy mentioned in her presentation is the HABs portal of just documenting HABs, taking pictures of them, and then sending them to the survey to collect them and collect them.
That's mostly just for lakes.
It could be streams and rivers too.
One other thing that we want to contribute to that is the fact that for a lot of the continuous monitoring work that's out there, non-selective electrodes for phosphate and nitrate right now are still either cost prohibitive or usually not accurate enough in situ to really keep things monitored for a longer period of time, especially with biofouling. So there is a higher probability of just looking at a red flag parameter like electrical conductivity and then doing your testing post hoc to figure out what exactly the causes are. And then after you have a graph sample, then to allow you to be able to locate the nitrate or phosphate. But it's definitely a good idea to start looking closer towards that. I'm sorry, Liz. Eric?
Yes. For the first designer, how do you decide which lakes to include in your program? Is there a certain criteria that you have for including a lake? Because you said there are more lakes you want to have. So is there a threshold, or like how do you even define a lake to include it?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, there really isn't. I mean, we have, at least in recent years, when money has been, not only has been no object, but we've had money to bring in new lakes. We have lakes that are as small as Buckingham Pond in Albany, which is, 2 meters deep, and is a little, it's a vital resource to the neighborhood that it's in, but it has a pretty, it's not a big lake, it's only 4 acres, and then we have several. So the breadth of lakes in the program is huge. Pretty much, the environmental conservation law says there has to be a lake association, but our definition of that has, included hunt clubs, friends of whatever lake group. So we're not really, it doesn't have to be an incorporated 501c3 lake association. There's homeowners groups, there's HOAs, there's, we have the city of Rochester, because it's the only way we could get hemlock and Canadites into the program. So we're pretty flexible with that definition, and I can't think of any time we have turned down a lake. Earlier on, there were certain years when funding was tighter, we had to make them wait maybe to come into the program, but always been able to get everybody intervention.
I have 2 questions, so if we don't have time for one of them. The first one is that when you approach communities with environmental justice or environmental injustice challenges, what would be your communication strategies to work with the communities? And the second question is, whenever you're doing citizen science or participatory science using EPA funds, do you have to go through the lab, or there's any way to write the proposal that doesn't really require a FOB, that is a quality assurance project plan, that have to be evaluated and approved before doing the participatory science? So 2 questions: environmental justice communities and this other programmatic lab experience.
Want me to take that, or we start it? So we are just getting into the environmental justice piece. It's just it's a new, and we are just thinking about that. And clearly, we don't want to just say, "Hi, we're here to help you," because that's what we're trying not to do. And part of the reason I'm here is to take advice on doing that, in particular, knowing that lakefront property owners and lake communities in New York State program, we're working with others to make it happen. So it's a pretty broad approach. And we've also been warned, don't make the funding cycle like not, okay, well, we used that for 2 years because that's when our grant ends and now we're leaving, because that's also not something we do. So suggestions are welcome because we're just
I'm not sure who this question is for, but are you familiar with the Community Science Institute? And how does that relate into all the programs that you were talking about?
For us, we certainly have like associations, Cayugas, and the Finger Lakes in particular, that do a lot of work with CSI, and they're also in CSI. So it's really, I think CSI really meets some of those local needs, particularly those in Finger Lakes, and some stream sampling that we don't do. But certainly, yeah, our local associations for us, you know, we've got people engaged working with both groups.
Do you think that would be a menu for our town in our state of New York to work with, as opposed to a bigger state lake association? Or a
Where you
yeah, I mean, I can't say no to that. I mean, it's what the local needs
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
What kind of water body are you monitoring?
Well, we're from the town of Mandas, and we are looking at 3 different small streams that enter eventually into another lake and then on up to Lake Usmanville.
That sounds like something that would be right up CSI.
So that,
Street.
okay, thank
Definitely.
you.
John and I literally just met with the lab manager down there yesterday. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, but yeah, they were saying that encouraging people their way if they have to be in their geographic coverage area, and you certainly are.
Okay, we actually did a well sampling back before hydrofracking began. We went and used them as the laboratory.
Yeah, they also have the red flag program that was going before fracking
Yeah.
was going to happen and to create a baseline. Yes.
Yeah.
Just retired.
Okay, but that's good, that might be a good menu for us to pursue.
Personally, I'd say yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for the presenters? All right, then I have a question for all of you. So we've heard a lot about these different programs. How do we become more aware of each other? Because there are probably several hundred not-for-profit organizations throughout the state of New York that are involved with either water issues and or land use. And despite the fact that I've tried to invite personally a number of folks from them, I spent days trying to find a lot of them online and can't really find much. So or find ways to contact them. How would a network, what would be the kernel that would start a network that we obviously need to grow? Do you have any ideas on that? Part of the reason that we pulled this session together was because those of us coming up from downstate were all wondering the same thing. Yeah.
I guess I'd like to start by echoing the prior comment and saying thank you. This is the only session where I saw environmental justice explicitly listed in the session title, so thank you for that. And so I think my comment is kind of in line with that, which is I wonder about broadening beyond the people who are already doing, I hear some people prefer to call it community science or civilian rather than citizen science in order to include people who are not citizens, but thinking about other people who might rely on waterways and how they might use them in ways that are different than the people in this room and the communities that we come from. So thinking about maybe, first one that comes to mind is maybe organizations who are working on nutrition and thinking about people who rely on fish as a source of protein, locally caught fish. Either that's a community practice or that's all they can afford for protein. And so working with those groups to identify their needs and priorities along with the people who already have the capacity to do water monitoring.
Like a very good idea. It also sounds like something that friends at Cornell Cooperative Extension like to latch onto, since they do, especially rural nutrition, and they happen to be tied up with this little organization called WRI.
anything good that came out of this Bloomingburg wastewater treatment plant was that I at first was very reluctant to go public with this. I'm a rather personal guy, so I was not happy about being a public figure. But at some point I came to the realization that, this is something that has to be known. And so I went out and I contacted several news agencies, as John had said, 12 News, Jeff Radio, et cetera, and I was amazed at how many emails and other organizations contacted me. Citizens contacted me because my email address was made public. It was on the reports that you saw on one of the presentations. And so it's unfortunate that something like this has to happen, but because that happened, I, for example, got an email from a woman downstream on the Shirongong Kill, which is the stream that's being polluted, and she said, "Frank, I need to talk to you because we here in the village of Gardner, we've been concerned about water coming through the Shirongong Kill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And so we started a conversation, and it resulted in their organization performing a bacterial count on their portion of the stream. And so now our efforts to document what's going down, what's happening upstream to them, has had an effect downstream. And just so you can understand the scope of this particular issue, the Shirongong Kill actually empties into the Wallkill River, which eventually makes its way into the Hudson River. And so now more and more people are becoming aware of what's happening, and more people are involved. And I think this is the kind of networking that Pete is referring to. I will also tell you, thank you, John, but he said that we were paying out of pocket. That wasn't my pocket. Okay, this is the Bashkill Area Association's pocket. We have borne the cost of the testing so far. So far, we've spent pretty close to $1,000 on various testing. But we were also contacted by another organization in our area who were very, very interested to hear what was going on in more detail, to which I provided them. And they were kind enough, this is the Friends of the Shirongong, they were kind enough to donate $1,000 towards our fund, to help with this testing. So don't be afraid to go public. Don't be afraid to talk to people.
Another thing I'd like to point out really quick about that, for those of you who don't know the geography of watersheds in lower New York State, the Shirongong Kill, despite the common Dutch class portion, or suffix of kill, is not actually in the same drainage as where Frank's heart is, in Bashkill.
Yeah.
Bashkill drains into the Delaware, and the Shirongong Kill is on the other side of the defining ridge that defines the boundary between the Delaware and Hudson watersheds. What the BKAA has done with their own not-for-profit raised funds is actually outside of their technical watershed jurisdiction in strictest sense. So they are doing this literally out of the goodness of their own hearts, and because there's no other organization that has picked up the ball in the other watershed. And this is where networks like I've been talking about are necessary, because when the other organizations for environmental protection, the other NFPs in the area, got wind of what was going on and what was needed, then they volunteered money and resources.
Yeah.
But until that point, until first going public, this was an isolated incident with no information getting out. So what we're asking, and this is a question that we should probably be, no offense, Tom, but we should also be asking the DEC, why is it that private citizens in a not-for-profit organization are the ones who are leading the charge on this? Should citizen science then be the whiskers of the cat, as it were, to detect these small perturbations in the environment around us, and then get other researchers, get agencies on board once we already have some data, or how do we do this?
Yeah, I just jump on what they're saying, just from our experience. So with our program, and this goes back a little when you're talking about the QAPs, the EPA fund. We've got no funding from the EPA. We've got from grants, smaller funders on it, and those don't require QAP. A lot of times, if you have a program volunteers, fewer page applications, you get $5,000, $10,000. You do need a QAP at times when you submit that data. We submitted some of that data to the DC, and at that point, you draft a QAP, and it goes around with that so they can recognize that. But you don't necessarily need to worry about that as an initial barrier. What you do need is people who will go out and do this, because if someone gives you $5,000, you can put in 3 stations. Peach stations are low cost, Stroud's low. They're not much. You can start with a couple $1,000. $5,000 will get you 2.5 stations in there. But then once you have that, you need volunteers in the community to be out there and take care of it, to make that actually have a return on that. And, for like environmental justice, that overlaps with that. If you have people in the region that's an environmental justice, then you're working on that. But those rivers flow through all different communities. So the more you can put together with different groups, the more area you can cover, which will encompass environmental justice areas, it'll encompass rural areas, it'll encompass areas that might be at threat of overdevelopment or urbanization, suburbanization, especially the last few years, and under the way New York as a home rule state works. So, just get people together first, reach out. When you get that together, then you can do it. If you get too lost, kind of like, I got to get this funding in place first for this large trip, you might never get there, because then you just get bogged down in the bureaucracy and that cycle, instead of just getting a couple people out there, getting a few $1,000s, putting something there, and then building it out. And then hopefully other groups, other people will come in and can take over some of those responsibilities as the program grows. That would be my advice on that.
Hi, Rick Sarn, I'm a thanks professor. Supposed to be retired, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
There it is.
But I belong to Central New York Land Trust. I've been at it for 35, 40 years. We're the 6th largest land trust in New York State. We're still smaller than most land trusts. The idea is that this is a not-for-profit organization that started out preserving land, basically, right? And they're with it.
He sounds like an environment counselor, aren't you?
And there's a number of these throughout New York State. And we also belong to the Land Trust Alliance, and that's an office in Saratoga that services all the land trusts in New York State. And that's part of a larger network called the Land Trust Alliance throughout all of the United States. So the concept is, what if you created a water trust or a watershed trust, right? So you have these regional groups organized around a watershed, but you have a support system, and still it's on a not-for-profit structural model. Just an idea.
It would also be interesting because of the fact that that would be an interesting interplay between parts of governmental organizations, so where conservation districts that already exist, and the citizens or the people around them, people who live in those areas, who are most interested in the outcomes of that water side of the soil and water conservation district. I mean, the SWCBs do a lot of work, but the thing is that very few people even seem to know about them, even within our realm.
Yeah, it's at the USDA, right? So
they're trying to, but yeah.
Right.
Good idea. The question, though, then becomes one of trust, because trusts are usually endowed in some way to actually have protect whether it be land or in this case water. So the question would be one of where do you get your local endowment from, and especially in underserved areas, is that something that comes down from somewhere else? Just a thought on that. This is awesome. Yes.
I have a question. Well, I mean, some of the funding maybe could come out of Albany, and the government, funds all types of projects all around the state with our water supplies and keeping safe and healthy is very important. So maybe, if something was put together, and come to the Assembly, the Senate, the government, and see what kind of funding could be put towards that. And that was actually my question would be, to anybody, I mean, do you know of any policies that might be in the Senate or the Assembly now, or, that might be proposed that could help in the situation?
And for that matter, the other question becomes one of, okay, so which portion of the New York State government will that come down from? Would that be funding that would be routed through DEC because DEC's already done environmental work with not-for-profit organizations? Would it be something where we are lobbying for the DEC to essentially construct the network and fund it? Or is that more a matter of this is something that's extraneous to that?
Even, getting someone like an assembly and put forth a bill for funding for this specific purpose.
Right.
If anybody does know of any bills out there that might be in the assembly or the senate, please let me know, because I can pass those on to my assembly and do something about them.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, the document, if you scan that QR code on the right with your phone, that will bring you to the same document that I'm putting comments and questions in right now. The code on the left brings you to Slack, which is basically an instant messaging client that keeps pervasive chats and would allow us to continue connecting. Obviously, there's also email addresses for some of the presenters that have been put out there, especially on the website, if you want to keep in touch with any of us. But we're going to have to close up the session now since the poster session is about to begin. I think we have time for one more question or a comment if anybody else has one. You have that.
Sorry, just a quick one. National Science Foundation has a bunch of funds. It's called RCN, Research Coordination Network. Yeah, there are like dashes on the end of a bunch of other funding types. That sounds great. Probably partner with the university, but it sounds exactly like the kind of funding that
we're kind of being hosted by two universities.
There you go. You might know one or two then. And two that I've seen are DICES, D-I-S-E-S, due in November, and CHIRP, C-H-I-R-R-P, due in June.
Well, it would be novel for the National Science Foundation to see a bunch of signatory not-for-profit organizations on with Clarkson and SUNY DSF. Probably novel to the point where they might do something like that, if we're lucky. Thank you for your consideration, and if you have any more thoughts, please, these methods are available to get in touch with us, and also